the heat wave has hit New Hampshire. Now for us, it's high 70s today, and tomorrow, actually I'm filming on Friday, so tomorrow and Saturday when you're watching this, it'll probably be in the 80s. No. That's why one of the reasons I live in New England is I am not a summer person. So, yeah. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at middle of the book march, and this is my bookish week for Saturday, May 14th. Yeah, Friday the 13th was yesterday, right? Woo! I made it out alive. So, yeah, I have some bookish stuff to talk to you about. I completed 2 books, and I DNF'd one, happily. Oh, wait till you hear about that one. So, yeah, and there's not going to be any singing in the background this time. I made the child take a shower so we could go to the library and grocery shopping, and I took advantage of her absence to film this video. I'm getting smart. Tonight, on Friday night, the 13th, I have the Critical Chicks book group that we're meeting to discuss one of the books I completed. However, it's a little sad because we were hoping to meet in person, but one of our members, her husband got sick with what they hope is a cold, but he started to have a slight fever today, so it was going to be at her house. And if he is sick with COVID, she would be exposed, so we decided to, again, put ourselves on Zoom, which we've been doing for 2.5 years since the advent of COVID, when the world changed. So we're going to do a Zoom meeting tonight, but it's like, oh, I wish we could have, done the in-person thing. We've been able to meet a few times in person. And we have a friend who moved to Florida, and we put her on Zoom on one of our phones, so she gets to be part of the conversation. We have another friend that lives in New Jersey, and we do the same thing. So we have 2 talking heads on electronic devices on some of our meetings. So we've been really enjoying that. And I don't get to get carrot cake in person. I'm really depressed about that one. I am going to the grocery store, so maybe, no, I shouldn't say that because I've been trying to choose better foods for myself and my health, so I probably won't get the carrot cake. Okay, how about if I talk about books now? The first one I finished is Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and this is a reread for me. I read it many years ago, and I gave it 5 stars many years ago. It's interesting as a reread because I'm seeing the pieces that are just not perfect, and I'm getting a better perspective as an older adult, having read this many years ago. But I still kept 5 stars for this book because there's so many things that it says brilliantly, and there's so much writing that she crafted brilliantly to write her story. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is Angelou's first in a memoir installment. And this covers her life from when she was a small child until she's starting to turn 17 and 18. So her adulthood is going to start soon. And the book was first published in 1969, and it was renewed in 1997 by Maya Angelou, she's since passed away. So it's been reprinted. It's been in print for so many years for good reason. So there's only so much I want to say, but because the book has been around for so long, she talks about her life and how her parents were not together, but I don't remember if they were divorced or never married, but they sent Maya and her brother Bailey away to live with their paternal grandmother in Stamps, Louisiana, a very rural, country, southern town. And Maya Angelou was born in 1928, so she was living in a very backwoods rural town in 1931, maybe. I think she was sent to Stamps, Louisiana with her older brother. And it tells her story of being sent away, being what she felt abandoned by her mother, her parents, she trying to get used to the loneliness, the abject loneliness of a small child in a place where she wasn't familiar, where She lived in a community of all black people. They were very segregated from the white people. So there's a black community, a black country community, and a white, obviously more wealthy and more privileged society and they avoided them. So this was very much not very long after Reconstruction of the South, after the Civil War. And she did have relatives that were enslaved. But her grandmother was a very devout evangelical Christian who relied on the Bible, relied on proselytizing, relied on biblical cliches, I like to call them, to explain the world and to also interact with her grandchildren as well as other friends and relatives and community members. So Maya had a very lonely, confusing childhood, but the one person she loved unconditionally was her brother Bailey. And out of loneliness and needing to get away, to escape some circumstances, she was introduced to books and reading. And that's what saved her life, was getting into books and being encouraged and actually aggressively pushed into doing well in school. It was not an option to not do well in school, and actually she thrived there. She was very intelligent, very high grades. So she and her brother would read constantly and the classics. She experienced a traumatic event at the age of 8 years old, and she went selectively mute after that event because she believed that she was evil. She believed that the power of her words were destructive and violent, and she didn't want to cause anybody harm by the power of her speech and her words. And at that point in her life, she describes starting to listen more powerfully and more carefully. And that's how she learned how words worked, how words were put together, what the meaning and the underlying meaning and the inconspicuous meaning of tones and circumstances and words were, which led to her brilliant writing career. So this is such a powerful book, but what it also does, without even talking very much about it, because it is a very individual story of Angelou's life, but it also is very succinctly pointing out racism in the South after Reconstruction. It is pointing out the existence of blacks and whites together but separate. It is talking about poverty, what people will do to keep each other alive, to keep each other going from the black community. The white community didn't have to think about that, didn't have to worry about it. And she names the people in her life who just saved her life. So it's a very powerful book, exceptionally well written. Highly recommend this. This is, I believe, taught in many schools. So I would urge you to start her memoir series by reading this book. Again, I said earlier, I've noticed the things about it that are not perfect, but I just didn't care because there's so much that has so much power in her writing that I highly recommend that. Now, the other book I finished, I had completely forgot to tell you in the last week or so, but I was reading Beverly Jenkins' Rebel on my Kindle. And I've read another Beverly Jenkins romance novel before, and I really enjoyed it. It's not, I have to say, I enjoy her books, but they're not, it doesn't take too much effort to read. They're super fast to read. It is basically a historical romance. And this book is about a black woman named Valinda and a black man named Drake. Drake was born a freedman, and he is a landowner coming from a wealthy family. And Valinda is a woman who traveled from New York to Louisiana to New Orleans to teach children. And she was kind of escaping her past. Her father was what they thought was a powerful man with money who was trying to marry her off to a much older man who she did not want to be married to. And she left New York to escape her father's tyranny. So she is a teacher. She is working in an area where she still has to look over her shoulder constantly if she's walking down the street. She has to be aware that white people are still out to get black people even after the war has ended and Reconstruction is taking place. She is violently attacked and almost raped. Her school is destroyed. So she's working with a mission organization, I believe it's a Catholic church, and they eventually can't support her financially anymore, so she doesn't know what she's going to do. And as she's attacked, as it's happening, the man who saves her life is Drake. And the relationship ensues from there. It's kind of a story of this swashbuckling man, powerful, strong man who rescues the damsel in distress, but she's not really that submissive of a damsel. She's highly intelligent, driven, ambitious, wants to help the world, and they have very many things in common. And he's also not the type of man that wants to hold her back from reaching her goals. So the kid came out of the shower. That was the interruption. Anyway, it was a really fun read. It was, romance, and I thought going into the book that there wasn't going to be any sexy time, steamy bits. And if there are in a romance, that's fine. I don't have issue with that. But there were steamy bits, and I'm like, how surprised I was, whoa, woe is me. But so yes, it was a somewhat steamy romance, and love happily ever after at the end. So it was a fun read, 3 stars, which was good. I enjoyed it. I definitely really enjoy Beverly Jenkins' romance novels. She does a lot of teaching, which I really like. I learn a lot from her books, about history and about the South and the Civil War. Both of the books I've read so far have to do with enslaved people and the war and what happened after the Civil War. So I really appreciated that. I really liked her books. So the one book that I happily DNF'd is Out by Nasuo Carino. It was originally published in Japan in 1997. It was translated from the Japanese by Stephen Snyder and published in English in 2004, I believe. So this book is 2003. So this book is a 25-year-old novel. This is the story of 4 Japanese women who are working in a food preparation factory in the graveyard shift in the middle of the night. And it discusses their relationships with each other, the friendships that they have, the support that they provide each other, doing this physically excruciating job. This was a buddy read with Britta, and we're really looking forward to this because this book is billed as a feminist thriller, a Japanese feminist thriller, and we were both extremely pissed off that that's not what it is. And I'm not going to say anything more about what Britta thought about the book. She will give her wrap-up in one of her videos. This is completely my opinion. I read a third of the book and DNF'd it. I was expecting a development of feminist characters and the event that they need to work together to solve. This is not a spoiler. It's on the dust jacket of the book. One of the women ends up murdering her violent and abusive husband. And the group of the other 3 women band together to help her dispose of his body. And they think that they have a really good solution, so nobody will ever discover what they've done. But eventually his body parts start being discovered. So, the theory of the story was really interesting. I was really looking forward to it. I got so much feedback from people that there's a lot of gore and violence, and they were really looking forward to hearing what I had to think about the book. This has a lot to do with a Japanese underground crime syndicate. So there was a lot of violence in the book and a lot of pretty gross, disgusting scenes. There's also a lot of rape in the book, and I realized that going in as well. But what I wasn't expecting in what was billed as a feminist thriller was the inherent internal misogyny of this author. She wrote these female characters, and she's discussing them, the way they look, their middle age, their downtrodden appearances. She writes one of the characters who's called overweight and She is looked down on because of that, talks about their financial status. So every single one of these women, basically, according to the author, has nothing going for her. But for whatever reason, they've banded together. She talks about rape, and each of the characters is discussing that rape happens to young, pretty women. And one of the characters is jumped by a co-worker in the factory, a male co-worker, and he's trying to drag her to an abandoned building in order to rape her. And she's trying to tell him, why don't you wait for somebody pretty and younger? You don't want me. I'm not pretty. I'm not young. And I can understand those attitudes by the author if she's trying to set up who this character is and what her attitudes are. But every single one of the female characters came off that negative. Each of them have horrible husbands, they have horrible partners, they have really depressing lives, they blame their gender on much of that, they ascribe their experiences to something they've done wrong, they weren't supportive enough of husbands, they gave up too fast, they deal with physical abuse, and that's just the way it is. There's nothing feminist about this thriller, and feminism shouldn't have to include murdering a man and dismembering his body and getting rid of the body parts. That's not feminism. It's just violence. And she also was giving the background on two male characters who were labeled as rapists. And I was not here for that. I didn't want to hear a sympathetic account of some rapist background. And it wasn't a story that I wanted to read as if she intended it on being character growth centered. It wasn't that. And there's so many translation errors. I'm not going to talk too much about that because Britta was the one who found them. And I'm like, this sucked. This book sucked. It wasn't even the violence and the gore that really bothered me. And I have read many books with rape included and themes of sexual assault. But this was poorly done and anti-feminist, female misogyny in the writing. It felt like the author believed what she was writing about women and how they looked at rape and sexual assault, looked at their age, at their gender, at their status in society, and it was very poorly done. So I read about a third of it and will be getting rid of that book. There. Okay. Whew, calm down for a minute. Okay, now, what am I currently reading? I also have some book mail that I received, and I wanted to quickly show you some of those books. Britta, because I DNF'd out, Britta and I started a new buddy read, and we're reading Actress by Anne Enright. So I started this yesterday. I've only read a few pages so far. Really looking forward to this one. Anne Enright is an Irish author that I have a few of her books, and I love her style. I have a soft place in my heart for Irish authors and Irish stories, so looking forward to getting further into that. What else am I reading? I'm still reading. Le Guin is still on the table, not actively reading the next novella in that book yet. I am also reading Olga Tokarczuk's The Books of Jacob. That's in the other room because it's a ginormous 950-something page book. I'm still making my way through that one. And what else? I'm reading The Rebel Nun, and I don't remember the author's name. I will put it in the text here. It'll be in the picture. That's so far so good. I'm reading that one on my Kindle, and that is based on a true story of Clotilda or Hilda, the Rebel Nun from the book starts in the 6th century, and it kind of jumps in time and looks back on that history. So it's in the 6th and 7th centuries. So far, I really like the writing, and I'm really enjoying the story. And I was listening to Daniel Deronda by George Eliot on audiobook, narrated by Juliet Stevenson on Scribd. And I was having so many problems with Scribd. I've had problems with Scribd all along the way. Removing books, stopping books, taking books away when I'm in the middle of listening to them, limiting the offerings. The offerings don't really get updated very often. It's okay. And I had a lot of technical issues with Scribd, so I broke up with them. And I was not continuing to read Daniel Deronda on Scribd. And then I was trying to figure out where am I going to get my audiobooks, and I found Naxos Spoken Word Library. They have an enormous amount of classics, and I thought this is wonderful. The Daniel Deronda version I want is on there, Middlemarch, and I started to pick up on Daniel Deronda. There is no way on Naxos Library to speed up the narration. And I also had so many technical issues with the website and being able to access my password, getting access. And I was so frustrated that I signed up for them for a subscription and I canceled the same day. So now I have a lot of other options. I do have Chirp audiobooks, which I purchase audiobooks on, but those I only purchased audiobook deals, so I buy books for less than $4 or $5. Most of the time they're $1 or $2, and they do have so many classics that I enjoy. Plenty of other books, plenty of every other kind of genre, and contemporary fiction, nonfiction, everything. So I'm going to stick with them for a while. I'm trying Audible Plus. I'm just trying to merge away from Amazon, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, Daniel Deronda is off the table for right now. I think I prefer to read it in print anyway. So let me show you some books I picked up really quickly. I'm not going to get too far into these. I went to Barnes & Noble on Mother's Day, and I bought this book for myself. This is Natalia Ginzburg's Family Lexicon, and it is in the NYRB version, which I absolutely love. I read a book of hers for the BookTube Prize in Translated Fiction and Voices in the Evening. This is translated from the Italian by Jenny McPhee. Natalia Ginzburg is an Italian author. And she writes a lot about family dynamics, family legacies, fascism and the war in Italy. And I really liked Voices in the Evening, and so I have seen this one and I picked that one up. Happy Mother's Day to me. This one is a novella that I saw on somebody's channel or on Goodreads, and I thought I think I would really like that. Great Granny Webster by Caroline Blackwood, again in NYRB format. And this would be a really quick one. I look forward to this one. Great Granny Webster herself is a fabulous monster, the chilliest of matriarchs, presiding with steely self-regard over a landscape of ruined lives. That's just one of the sentences from the back of the book. I got Jane Gardem's Faith Fox, the Europa edition. Again, another edition that I absolutely love. Both grief and humor abound as a motley crew of friends and family try their hand at raising the young orphan Faith Fox. The concerned parties include Faith's uncle, who runs a commune in northern England, the Tibetan refugees who have moved in with them, her delightful and imaginative adoptive brother, and the splendidly bickering grandparents. It's a Dickensian comedy of manners amid high and low society. So, Jane Gardem, I read Old Filth at the beginning of the year. I think that may have been my first 5-star read. Absolutely loved it. I have since been collecting her books and got that one in the mail. I finally bought this for myself, Anna Burns' novel, No Bones. Was this her first novel? Yes, this is Anna Burns' debut novel, No Bones. She is the author of Little Constructions and one of my favorite books of all time, Milkman, which I reviewed in 2019. This is a book about feelings, family, sex, and Ireland. See? But don't tell Amelia that. She's the one growing up in the mad family, in the mad society, who doesn't want to know what's going on. But things are going on. 8-year-olds collecting very peculiar treasure. Babies who just might be or not be bombs. Schoolgirls bringing guns into schoolyards. And of course, lots of food and bad, bad sex. Yep, I'm here for that one. And I was so happy to finally get this. I bought Heartstopper Volume 1. I was interested in watching the show, but I almost refuse to ever watch a show if I know there's a book out. I have to read the book first. It's like a law. And so I finally got this for myself and have heard so many excellent things about this charming, lovely book, and really looking forward to reading that. That's it. That's everything bookish I had to talk to you about. We are actually getting ready to go to the library, so I have a very small town library, but they have an excellent new release fiction section. Whoever buys the books, and I've told them this before, somebody's doing their job. Somebody's doing a great job getting new releases in that library. So I'm really looking forward to checking those out. Let me know what you think of any of the books I talked about, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.